Hey,
Good
how are you?
morning. How you doing?
Did you get a text from me Sunday night?
Sure did.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had the right number. So.
Charles, is it your mom that makes the pickled tomatoes, or is it you? So mainly her?
Good evening. That's too loud. Be turning to the book of Joshua 13. Joshua 13. Hey, Jimmy, run up into the booth. Run. You slow runner. All right, look over there to your left. Right there, right where you're standing. Look down at the board. You see where it says mic? Turn it down a little bit. Yeah, that's a mic. M-I-K-E. There's just one mic. How does that sound? That's still too loud? Huh? Turn it down just a tad. Pull the slide down. It should be on about the third mark. You see the slide? Yeah. Up just a little bit. Up just a little bit. How's that sound, Bob? Right on the money. Someone said I was perfect. All right, Joshua 13. And tonight what we're going to be looking at is a satisfied life. Announcements. Laura 4, Thursday Bible School tomorrow needs help in the nursery. So if anyone can help in the nursery tomorrow, please see Laura before we leave tonight. Bobby Glenn's having blood pressure issues. Appreciate our prayers. Virginia Stewart, who is Jimmy Stewart's oldest sister, they left today to go visit with her, but they don't think she's going to make it, so pray for Jimmy. Pray for the families and the kiddos as they're traveling to Little Rock to the Lads to Leaders Convention. Steady climbers and golden ages are invited to Stephen Ladonna's for an outdoor game day on the 23rd at 4 o'clock. That'll be a week Saturday. Praise Bling lawn cheers, outdoor games that you'd like to play. There is a sign-up sheet on the bulletin board for food. Let's specifically be praying for our Mission Sunday, which will be the 24th. We have always done extremely well, and we've got some great missionaries. Kids for Christ. That doesn't apply to us. All right, Sarah needs photos from last weekend's at-home convention and from the upcoming Little Rock convention. So if you're taking photos, just bombard Sarah with them. Is it God's purpose to satisfy us? No.
It's our aim to be satisfied with God's blessings for us.
Okay.
Although he gives us everything to be satisfied. But I don't know if that's just the purpose.
But does everyone get what that would satisfy them?
It's
The individual person. Why are we such a discontent people?
Because of the song, we all want what we ain't got.
We all want what we ain't got.
It's a song, I believe.
I told our kids growing up that needs and wants have nothing to do with each other.
Needs and wants have nothing to do with each other. Paul, in a prison cell, said irrespective, and I think part of Paul's contentment may have been found in the fact that he knew that he wasn't maybe going to stay there. I am finding, I don't mean to belittle a younger generation, but goodness gracious, they want to start where we finish.
That's how we talk.
Not me.
Not everybody. I realize that, nothing covers everybody, but I think that's what a lot of families talk.
Well, my parents' generation was blamed for a lot of it because they tried to give us what they didn't have. And in doing so, a lot of people didn't have to earn it. They just got it because parents could do it.
Okay, and I don't know where this guilt comes from, but parents trying to give to their children what they didn't have and somehow think it's going to help.
It's like
I had a lot growing up, and I felt like I had a good childhood. It wasn't filled with things or things you could have.
in my coaching years, I saw a lot of parents that tried to live their athletic life through their kids, though, too.
You see a lot of that.
And I think that's some of what it is, what they were trying to give us because they didn't have it. It kind of helped them live through it again.
I had a lady at Tiptonville, Tennessee, who told me that she's always dressed her boys, she had boys, so that I look good at church. Listen, we made our kids iron their own clothes. And if they went to church with wrinkles, and I let the people know, we don't iron their clothes. They wash and iron their own clothes. But we're dissatisfied. A car is not worn out in 3 years. I found a picture the other day. Well, it came up on Facebook Memory of my first Volvo. It's 1975 Volvo. And I put 517,000 miles on it. I still have the key that I wore out in a shadow box. And when I got rid of it, it wasn't because it was worn out. A house, 7 years is the average ownership on a house. How long did I say marriage, the typical marriage in America lasts? 8.2 years. We're always changing because things go out of style. Jared will tell me that I can't wear my, what's the coat that I wear, Donna? That white and seersucker. After a certain time, I wear it just to spite him. Who said you can't wear that? You can't wear that. But we are a discontent people.
We're programmed that way because every form of advertising is geared to you want the newest, the best, and you deserve it all.
You deserve it all. Advertising.
They start with kids, you know, I mean, all the advertisements for toys, cereals with
Mhm.
toys in it. So they start with kids and bring them up.
And I'll tell you what else they do, and I'm going to preach a sermon on this. Brethren, the internet is dangerous for our children. I'm not saying kind of, sort of. It is dangerous. Every time that your child and or you and I are on the internet, it tracks the speed of our finger down the face of the phone. And when you stop, they know what you've stopped on. They're basically reading you from the other side of that screen. But I think one reason, Paul could have gone into martyrdom. It could have cost him his life. But he said, I've learnt to be content. When we start, half of the joy of life is learning and accomplishing, having steps up, both in pay and being satisfied. Advertising tells us what we should have, and if we're successful. You got Bubba over here, and he's got an electronic lawnmower that does it all. He doesn't even have to touch it, and he's driving a brand new car. And look at his house, and it's 4 times what he can afford. And as the advertisement is closing out, he said, if my neighbor just knew how much I owed. It is not worth it. And a lot of the time, a wife will go to work to do one thing, pay the payments on a new car. You have no hedge whatsoever if you are stretched that far. I buy used books. And I can get a $40 or $50 book for sometimes $2. And the words in it, even though they have been read, still mean the same. And I get books. And so let's read the book of Joshua and look at this idea of having a satisfied life. And when you talk to some people, it's like they've never and don't expect to ever have a satisfied life. They believe that God has robbed them of everything. Now, what do you know about Simeon and Levi as far as the people go?
Levites were set aside as priests, and they weren't given an inheritance like the rest of the tribes of Israel.
Okay. In the wilderness, Simeon and Levi were butchers. They murdered people.
They murdered their brothers.
And Jacob said, I will not bless you. And he didn't. On Jacob's deathbed, he cursed his 2 sons. This was in the wilderness. If you have a life that you do not think that God can do anything with, remember the tribe of Levi. Remember Levi. From that, in the wilderness, Moses came down from the mountain, and he had the commandments of God. And what were the people doing? Worshipping a golden calf. Worshipping a foreign god. After they had witnessed the roaring and the fire, the shaking of that mountain. And when Moses came down, he said, basically, all of you who choose God step on over here. Simeon didn't. Levi did. And from Levi, you have a people that were set apart to take care of God. If something needed to be done in the temple, the tabernacle, they brought God to man, and they brought man to God. Don't ever think that a moment can't change your life. That's the story of Levi. The Levites that were not given an inheritance. Towns were set apart for them to live in, to go to when they weren't serving. You remember with the ox carts, the oak. They were given no new oak because they were not to be using the carts. They were not to be doing that sort of a labor.
They also had to depend on everybody else for their food and everything.
Everything. And that's a good lesson for the church. I don't know what it is, and the church is slowly changing, but talking to another preacher in the audience, the church used to think if we can keep our preachers poor, we can keep them close to God. It's a terrible attitude. Yes. And by the way, the number one reason for divorce is money problems. And then you got members that will complain, and you stop and think about what a preacher goes through if he was in a different field. I do not believe that I gave up, and I do not like to hear preachers talk about, well, do you know what I gave up to preach? I don't believe in that philosophy. And so now you have Joshua talking to those and trying to teach us what a real inheritance is. You can save all your life, and you can add to your portfolio, you can add to all your stuff. You have so much stuff you need to go to a storage building. But brethren, of our children, we can't take our children to heaven. I'd give up everything I had. Like Paul said, he said, if I could just go and preach one more sermon to my brethren, the Jews, I'd be accursed. I would allow God to cut me off and send me to hell. Is how important the Jews were to Paul. What about our children? That's an inheritance. When we know that there's a great reunion. All right, so let's begin reading in the book of Joshua, chapter 13. Let's begin reading in verse 29. Beginning in verse 29, and Moses gave an inheritance to the half-tribe of Manasseh. It was allotted to the half-tribe of the people of Manasseh according to their clan. Their region extended from Mahanaim through all of Bashan, and the whole kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, and all the towns of Jireh, which are in Bashan, 60 cities, and half Gilead, and half Ashtaroth, and Edrei, the city of the kingdom of Og in Bashan. These were allotted to the people of Micah, the son of Manasseh. For the half of the people of Micah, according to their clan. These are the inheritance that Moses distributed in the plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, But to the tribe of Levi, Moses gave no inheritance. The Lord God of Israel, listen, is their inheritance, just as he had said to them. There are people who believe that God has not blessed them. God cannot use them, and that they have been robbed of some sort of an inheritance. But brethren, our lives would change if we lived every day and every hour in the presence of God. You can take anything that's in front of you and you can overcome it. But brethren, knowing every day that I walk, I have an inheritance in God. Do you ever have days where you wonder, am I going to make it? Or you know you've misbehaved. Things have got inside of you and they've agitated you and stirred you. And we know that God understands. Someone once asked, if a car pulls out in front of you and you use an emergency word, don't have time to repent, or you're going to hell. Obviously, we don't understand God. We've had fight with our children. They've said things that I know they didn't mean. Because I'm their father. They're upset. They're angry. And God understands the same thing. And so, we find that in this writing, that each was given an inheritance, a plot of land. And in the book of Jude, chapter 1 and verse 6, the demons or the angels, Satan did not keep his first estate. They were not satisfied with what God had allotted them and where to live. God did that, not Moses. And from what we understand about the beginning and the genesis of Satan was that God had given him a work or a place. And he did not keep his first estate. And he was cast out. And so Israel, as you look at them, they each have inherited. Or you go through and I went down to Fort Smith to buy a gun case, a safe. I drove up to a cul-de-sac, and at the end of the cul-de-sac, there was, I'm not kidding, there was a castle. And you just sit there and you look from one side of the cul-de-sac to the other, and then I turned my head to where I was buying the safe, and it was half a castle. A husband and a wife. And so we see these allotments, we see this land or this inheritance we've been given, and we're in awe. And then you come to the little old sharecropper's house, and inside of it, it's a home. Not interested in what people think about it. You have mama, you have daddy, you have the kids, sometimes the grandchildren, and they have an inheritance. Something they can hold their head up and be proud of. And so, when our hope becomes disillusioned, what disillusions our lives and makes it, in some cases, a little bit harder to understand God?
We tend to focus on what we don't have rather than what we do have.
We focus on what we don't have.
Like you said, you see this castle. Well, there's somebody in the world that would look at your house and say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes on down the line. You're not taught. The world doesn't teach to be satisfied. The world teaches more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
But if we live our lives focused on the blessings that we have versus the things we may call blessings or whatever that we don't have, it changes your attitude towards other people, towards situations, towards somebody else's blessings. It comes from, it can change from a jealousy towards someone that has more than you to an admiration for his work ethic or happy for that person for their blessing. You know, your attitude changes everything.
And like I said, it depends on where you are on that plane. I remember one preacher, he said, when I started, I started preaching about, he could not believe people would have an automobile. He still had a buggy. And then when he got a car, he had to change his preaching. And so he started preaching on, I can't believe people own 2 cars.
And it goes back to the very beginning. You know, we think that's new.
Mm.
We feel like that's new, but God gave his children everything they needed in the wilderness, and what happened? They wanted more. You know, bread's not good enough. We want meat. Meat's not good. You know, we want more. And I don't know what teaches us to be satisfied. I don't know where that training and that teaching comes from. But I think it starts with your attitude towards yourself and other people.
All right, I think it's a lot of it instilled with parents, especially godly parents.
Well, look at Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Start with Adam and Eve. It starts at the very, very beginning. The garden was not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough. It was everything and it was not enough.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I know one guy that's as rich as anybody I've ever known, named Hayden Carter. I mean, but if you just went by that,
Mm-hmm.
looking at his house, you think, he's overindulgent. But then again, he paid for Coolidge Ridge College to build their buildings. He was an elder in the church. He helped people get into houses that couldn't afford to. I mean, he used his money the right way. So I think we have to be careful of thinking it's just the material things that's got us all wrong. It's not that. It's like you were saying, it's your mental and how you feel about stuff.
And I don't know that there's more covetousness and poverty than there is those who are making it, wishing they had. There were 2 millionaires at Double Springs, not too far from where I preached, the Posies. They were both elders. They owned a mobile home supply house. It was enormous. Any Christian that needed anything, it was given to them. Their wives were the first out to someone who had problems. And they had a turkey, sliced turkey. And he decided, and by the way, he has one of the first Corvettes that he bought new that's in his basement. He had just the average house, and he decided he was going to remodel. And again, you have a castle. every bit of it. Everything they have collected in life, including the Corvette. They have died and it's coming up for auction. To me, an auction is a rude awakening of what you thought was precious. And it really isn't. And so with Joshua, as they're looking around, and each of these tribes have an inheritance, and the Levites didn't. But they are assured that their inheritance was God Himself. You can look all you want, brethren. If you don't have God, it's all coming to an end. And so Joshua's trying to get this lesson across to his own people. A Christian marries another Christian, and they have what seems to be a real happy marriage, and then all of a sudden, things go south. You got 3 children, and one just deserts the other one. And there you are, alone. You are now responsible for the finances. You are responsible for the raising of those 3 children. You are alone. Tell me some of the stories, ladies, of your husband helping you in times of need, raising your children.
And we hear the silence.
Well, I can say Rick could have been a mom. He was like a Mr. Mom. He did everything.
Can we say it different than I could have been?
He was, I mean, night stuff, he did feeding, he did, he was just all over. In fact, the first night, I brought our first child home, and I was like, he didn't want me to worry with getting up and all of that, and I was wanting to, but he was like, no, I'll do this.
Mm-hmm.
He was super.
And so, you're alone. You got a 7 and a 9-year-old, maybe a baby, and Rick's not there. There can be a terrible burden in aloneness. And men, if you can go and kill a deer and skin it and gut it, don't you dare screw your nose up and put your t-shirt over your face when you're changing a baby's diaper. Just don't do it. Someone give me another illustration. Ladies?
I got a brother that went hunting the day his wife had their baby.
Okay. He had it planned.
His priority.
Someone else. All right, Ron, every day, something with the kiddos. Yeah. Yeah. And some men, I just don't think I could take care of them. Rachel, tell me something great about Joshua.
He's just trying to make the rest of us look bad.
Okay. One thing Donna did when the children were born is she stopped working. And I was making a couple of $100. She made about 3 times what I did. And guess what? We made it. There has to be change, but we made it. And we were determined that the family was going to come first. And so the Levites, the ones that we would have given up on, Jacob would not bless them in a moment. The bottom of Mount Sinai, Moses challenged them, if you're going to choose the Lord, come to my side, and Levi did. And it changed his whole life. It changed the tribe. It changed the blessings. They were satisfied. They were satisfied having God as their inheritance. Time and time again you'll hear members of the church say, I don't know how people make it if they're not Christians. And so God ordered the other tribes in the book of Numbers, chapter 35, that they were to set aside 48 cities for the Levites. They provided for them. Some that were sacrificed, the meal, the money, was given to them to provide for them. But I want you to remember that it was the job of the Levites to bring God to man and man to God. They were always the intercessories. And this is what we should be. I wore this tonight, this shirt, and the waiter, the server over at Damon said, "Oh, are you a Methodist preacher?" And I kind of stuck it. Oh, he said Church of Christ. And it gives you an opportunity to talk. We ought to be telling people about our inheritance and why we look forward to it so desperately. Any questions? All right, Robert B. will not be talking about changing tires on a motorcycle Sunday. We struggled with it for seemingly half a day. Eddie and I struggled with it for 45 minutes. And finally, I thought a good idea is take it to the tire shop down here at A&R. And it took him about 30 seconds. Sometimes it just ain't worth saving a few bucks. Am I right, John? But Bob will be teaching on Redemption Sunday, and John will be dealing with Joshua a week from today. All right, appreciate your attention. Don't forget, Lauren. I don't know why I said Lauren. Lauren needs help in the nursery tomorrow. And I don't guess that has to be a lady. If you men need a few extra points,